My name is Amanda Strickler-Holman, and this is my Module 1 for AEP 880. A little bit about me, and I'm from a very small town in southeast Kansas called Colony. I graduated from a 1A high school with a class size of 23, so our town has about 500 or less total. I grew up on my family's farm outside of Colony, Kansas, and that has been my passion ever since, is agriculture. I recently got married last year in 2020. We were lucky enough to still have our full wedding and no plans had to change. And then the picture on the right just depicts my childhood animals that I still have. My horse that I have that I got when I was 8. And then the cow on the far right is an old show heifer I had back in 2007. So they're just living the retired, pampered life, and that's her calf in the middle. I currently work at USD 257 in Iola, Kansas. It's a 4A high school about 15 miles down the road from where I grew up. I came back home 5 years ago, as I call it, to work in this district. And I am an agriculture education teacher, which I love. And the picture on the left depicts a national team that we had a couple years ago, and we've been very fortunate that we have had 3 national teams in the same event back to back to back, which is dairy cattle, excluding 2020 because that didn't happen. There were no national events for us then. The picture in the top right, I am also the head volleyball coach for Iola High School and have been the past, this would have been my fourth year head coach at Iola. So some of my family history and background from my dad's side, they come from Germany and Sweden. Dairy farming is in the blood. That is what my dad tells stories about, getting up at 4 a.m. to go milk cows. And then cattle and farming and ranching have been in my family for years and years and years, and I am continuing that with my generation. On my mother's side, her parents came from Denmark. She was born in California and moved here in the 8th grade, so that was quite a culture shock for my mom. And some of the customs and traditions on my mother's side is that making tacos from scratch. My grandma had a very good recipe, including the shells, meat. It's not like any other taco that you would buy. So we have that tradition that we did every Christmas. And then we still have that recipe and do it not so much at Christmas anymore, but on occasion since my grandma's passing. The pictures that I chose to represent me and who I am, some of those pictures included were the ones previously, but as I mentioned, dairy cattle. So I was fortunate at Kansas State University to compete in LAR, and I won the dairy showmanship, as well as we have a big dairy farm in Iola, which is the Stricklers, which my dad's cousin, so it kind of runs deep. I was also a part of the dairy cattle judging team at Kansas State University, and when we would travel farm to farm, no matter what state we were in, everybody knew the Strickler dairy in Iola and would ask, "Are you related?" So that was a pretty neat thing to experience and cool establishment that is known in that industry across the 50 states. And then volleyball. So there's 2 things I've done my whole life, and that's agriculture and volleyball that I've really loved. So I was fortunate to be able to play in college And then my puppy is in the middle. She was born on April 20th of last year, and my mom had lots of complications and quit producing milk, so I've literally had her since day 5 of her life, so bottle fed, and she's our little baby now. The picture on the left, well, bottom right, depicts a group of friends that we continually hang out with and really enjoy doing events and riding ATVs and such with them. And then the top right picture depicts a scoreboard at K-State basketball game where we beat KU. I'm an avid Kansas State fan, and I loved every second I got at Kansas State University. I graduated there in 2015 with my bachelor's in agriculture education and a minor in animal science. So cultural diversity are part. Some takeaways that I got from there is that Hilda states that it takes 7 seconds to make and take in impressions on others and draw conclusions. I completely 100% agree, whether that you think that you're doing it or not. First impressions and that initial judgments I think that we all make, and that cultural diversity really relates to the inside of the person, not necessarily what you see. So that, when I think of cultural diversity before, I always thought of what they look like, their ethnicity, but that's not necessarily what it means. It means who they are and their customs and traditions on the inside. From appreciate cultural diversity, kind of like an astonishing fact, but yet I could also relate, is approximately 2/3 of people feel they need to conform to their ethnicity they look like. I feel like we all have stereotypes associated with us, and that people feel like they need to conform to that, even though maybe that's not their culture and custom or tradition right now. And then culturally diverse teams produce better results for problem solving and gaining revenue, which I agree with, in a sense of just having different perspective, different ideas, and being able to relate to more people. For the challenges of cultural diversity, you could have explicit and implicit actions. Being explicit being negative behavior that's intentional, like you're purposely being mean or discriminatory, while implicit it's concealed, like not everyone can notice, or that you don't realize that you're doing it, you're not meaning to, in a sense. And I thought a cool thing that Australia does is it celebrates Harmony Day and on March 21st and celebrates all people's customs and tradition, so that others can learn about that as well. And I thought that was really cool. For the engaging diverse communities, some takeaways that I gathered: communities don't have to be neighborhoods, they can be specific places. When I think of a community, I think of the entire neighborhood, but I could really relate to, you may have a community, like a huge community, but the local farmers market is a community in itself within that neighborhood. Communities should have a diverse council of leaders that consists of age, gender, ethnicity, as well as different lifestyles, not just your typical older people that they think that would have the time, or that want to be in those leadership roles. And then to really engage and create diverse communities, it's important that you first inform the community. You need to consult with the community. They need to be involved, have discussion and collaborate, and also empower members so that different or minority groups want to come out and be involved in communities, so that you create that diverse, engaging aspect. Familiar characteristics. For me, I feel like different clubs and organizations in our school that we create, in a sense of we I've added 2 new clubs recently. I feel like we could have almost every club under the sun, but I know that's not true. But we have lots of different things for students to be involved in. Our community has organized marches and demonstrations with the current world issues so that people can participate down on the town square. We have a Bolus Fine Arts Center that brings in all kinds of people. It really applies to the artsy world of our community, but I mean, they have dances, recitals, orchestra concerts, comedians, uh, professional speakers. I mean, anything really. And then in our state, I feel like Kansas has recently elected a more diverse group of government candidates or government leaders, whether that be for cities or our state than Kansas has in the past. Knowledge gained. Cultural diversity isn't just about how you look on the outside, but what you can bring to the table on the inside. And how I could bring that to our school. I really think it would be cool to have a multicultural day at school. In our school, we have diversity, but we don't have a lot of diversity, especially within our staff. So just really celebrating those minority groups and exposing and maybe inviting community members in to help celebrate those traditions and customs, I think would be really cool. And I do think that the kids would enjoy it, especially since we are like predominantly like a Western civilized group at school. Correlation, I believe this assignment correlated with the standard because it allowed me to advocate for school culture that would support diversity, and it also helped expand my knowledge of what cultural diversity really includes, and how it could greatly impact businesses and organizations and communities. It was relevant to my current learning because I'm a part of my community at school, as well as those students are a part of my community when they walk in the door. And it's important to understand it and celebrate it, and make sure that kids don't feel like their culture is being suppressed or they have to hide it. Everyone has something to offer, even if the majority of us look alike on the outside. That doesn't mean that we are the same on the inside. So we still need to be celebrated differently. And then for my personal reflection, I really enjoyed the TED Talks. I felt that I could relate to them, and I love the puzzle piece analogy on how different parts of us make our true self. I feel like this is extremely important to keep in mind with our challenging kids or our kids that continually push our buttons, because this is just one puzzle piece to them, not who they are entirely. And I can also keep this in mind when dealing with coworkers that I don't normally agree with. I might not like that one puzzle piece, but that doesn't mean I can't enjoy the whole puzzle. I also felt that Haley's statement about 2/3 of people feel the need to conform to others' expectations. I feel that both students and administration both go through this at some point, and it's important to be you and always you and not mask who you are to fit others' ideas. And these are my references. And again, my name is Amanda Strickler-Holman, and I look forward to working with you.